Hello, my name is Sam Sloan. I'm a candidate for President of the United States for the Democratic Party. I want to say something about the Republicans. I've actually always had a little bit of a conflict. I wasn't sure whether I was a Republican or a Democrat because I do agree with the Republicans on some areas, but a majority of them I agree with the Democrats, especially because the Democrats are anti-war. They want to get out of all these wars in the Middle East, and they also want to reinstate the estate tax. I'm not talking about raising the income tax or anything like that, but the estate tax needs to come back because we have to make sure that everybody works for a living and people should not be allowed to inherit millions of dollars from their great-grandparents without paying any taxes on it. And this will also solve the deficit problem that we have a huge deficit. Now, over the Republican side, they have some very bad people running. One of the worst people is a guy by the name of who used to have his brother and grandfather president. You may know who I'm talking about. Prefer not to mention the names of any rivals, but he wants to start more wars. He not only does he want to continue the wars in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria, but he also wants to bomb Iran, and he also wants to start a war with Russia. Listen to what he says. He wants to impose a no-fly zone over Syria, and we will shoot down any airplane that flies over the no-fly zone, which include the Russian airplanes. So he's directly said that he wants to shoot down the Russian airplanes if they fly over Syria. Well, you know, I mean, this guy is just completely crazy, and we definitely, this is somebody we don't want. And by the way, the people have told him that they don't want him because he's dropped to the bottom in the polls. The only people who are still ready to vote for him are people who haven't been following it very carefully. This guy's a very, very dangerous guy, and we definitely do not want him. And another person we don't want is Lindsey Graham, even though he's probably my distant relative, because my grandmother was named Graham. My family was Graham on my mother's side. But now he's out. He quit the race, and we're so glad to get rid of this guy. But the worst guy is this guy who has the same name as the previous president. Okay, we definitely don't want him. Trump is another blowhard. You'll see that his polls are dropping. The reason why he is not in the debates anymore is simply because he's already said everything he has to say on these subjects. He doesn't really have anything more. He's just a blowhard. He doesn't have any in-depth. You can say, let's keep the Mexicans out. Let's build a wall to keep the Mexicans out, and the Mexicans will pay for this wall. I mean, such a ridiculous statement, and people ridicule him, but he keeps saying it. Same like keeping all the Muslims out, like we're going to have a problem with the Muslims. We have, millions of Muslims in America. They're not causing any trouble. And then most of the other candidates, Republican candidates, have some real problem. Now, I will tell you that I think there are two candidates who are qualified to be president. One is John Kasich. He was a former banker. I want to say something about that because he's being attacked by saying, the company he worked for, Lehman Brothers, went out of business. Well, I want to mention why Lehman Brothers went out of business because this is important. The reason why Lehman Brothers went out of business is they were in the mortgage loan business, and they were being required by the left-wing politics of the government to give loans to people who really were not qualified to receive the loans. Especially Bernie Sanders was in his left-wing politics was saying we should give loans to the poor people, help poor people, own their own home. So because of left-wing politics, Lehman Brothers was being forced to give loans to people that really were not capable of repaying the loans. So this is the problem. This was caused by left-wing politics that they were forced through Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to give loans to people who are not qualified. And of course, when the people didn't pay the money back, that's why Lehman Brothers went out of business. So you have to blame Bernie Sanders for this. He says, oh, the problem is the billionaires. No, the problem is Bernie Sanders himself, because being a senator, he was in a position to force companies like Lehman Brothers to give loans, which were basically called radioactive loans. In other words, loans that could not be repaid. So basically, John Kasich is qualified. I'm running against him. I'm not in favor of him. I just want to make that clear. I'm not in favor of Mr. Kasich, but he is qualified to be president. And of all the Republicans, I would say he's best. And number two is Carly Fiorina. Now, and she has done a remarkable thing. She is the first woman ever to become the CEO of a major computer company. And it's a fantastic thing. Unfortunately, she's fallen in the polls. I think the fact that she mentioned she's got serious medical problems is one of the reasons why she's fallen in the polls. Frankly, if a person has serious medical problems, they probably shouldn't be elected president because he probably won't be able to live throughout the term, 4 years. Oh, I want to mention myself. I've been checked out by the doctors. I have no medical problems at all. I'm completely 100% healthy, although they did advise me to lose at least 20 pounds of weight, you know. But basically, I passed all the tests. If anybody ever wants my medical records, they're happy to see them. And I'm glad to have anybody look at them, because if there's something wrong with me, I'd like to know about it to be the first one. But basically, I'm 100% okay. The other two Democratic candidates are not entirely okay, but I don't want to go into that or say anything about that. The other Republicans, most of them, Huckabee, here's another thing that bothers me about the Republicans. The reason why Romney lost the election in 2012 was because, number one, Santorum, and number two, Huckabee. They were attacking Romney on religious grounds. Now, Romney is a Mormon, okay, and they tried to keep that out, but Romney is a Mormon, and I am not against him on religious reasons at all. I don't think a person's religion should be a factor in deciding whether they're president or not. But anyway, Romney and Santorum and Huckabee were attacking Romney on religious grounds. And then, when Romney became the nominee anyway, he could not shake off these attacks by Santorum and Huckabee. The other Benedict Arnold among the Republicans is Chris Christie, because when Hurricane Sandy hit in 2012, just before the election, New York City was hit with Hurricane Sandy, and Chris Christie goes on TV and says that Obama has done a wonderful job of dealing with the crisis caused by Chris Christie, by Hurricane Sandy. Actually, Obama didn't do anything at all. He just did the standard relief, emergency relief that any president would have done. But here we have the Republican candidate Chris Christie endorsing the Democrat Obama for president, and therefore that was what caused, that one little thing was what caused Romney to lose the election. So Chris Christie is a Benedict Arnold. He's a traitor to his Republican Party, of course. And as a Democrat, I'm happy that Romney was defeated in that sense. But I don't like Benedict Arnold, people who go around against their own party for their own political benefit. He probably wanted to torpedo the election of Romney so he could run for election himself in 2016. That's probably why Chris Christie did it. But he's a very despicable person, and he also closed. He is guilty, by the way. He will eventually go to prison for the Bridgegate scandal, where he closed 3 lanes of the George Washington Bridge in order to get political revenge against the mayor of Fort Lee, New Jersey. That he will go to jail for that eventually, I believe. And it's amazing that he's able to pull the wool over people's eyes. You know what he said on TV? He said, "I knew nothing." Have you ever watched the TV show Hogan's Heroes? And Hogan's Heroes is about a Nazi prisoner of war camp during World War II. They made a comedy out of it. And there's a Sergeant Schultz, a big fat guy, a German guy, and every time they ask him about Holocaust issues or something like that, he always says, "I knew nothing." And that's exactly what Chris Christie says about closing 3. Can you believe that the governor of the state of New Jersey did not know that the most heavily trafficked bridge in the entire world, the George Washington Bridge, has more traffic on it per day, about 300,000 cars per day crossing the George Washington Bridge? Can you believe that the governor of New Jersey did not know that 3 lanes of the bridge had been closed? Just ridiculous, a ridiculous claim. And Chris Christie is a very despicable, very fat guy, and basically we definitely do not want him as president. So basically, almost all of the candidates. Oh, Ron Paul would be a good president. I think he's weak. I don't think he's up to it, basically, to be president. But in his foreign policy, basically, I tend to agree with him on most issues. I'm closer to Rand Paul. I'm not in agreement with Ron Paul, though. But Rand Paul, I'm in agreement with him on most of his foreign policy issues, and I'm sorry he dropped out of the race. But all of them being eliminated, I think Carly Fiorina talking about her daughter died of being a drug addict. I don't know why she keeps bringing it up, but on the other hand, I had a daughter die, but my daughter was not a drug user. She just happened to catch this extremely rare disease. It's a terrible tragedy that what happened to my daughter, but nobody can blame anybody for that except it. And by the way, I'm so surprised that Jeb Bush keeps saying that his daughter was a drug addict, Why is he proud of this? He said, "Oh, I know what the problem is with drugs because my daughter was a drug addict." I don't understand why he's proud of this. Why is that a good thing to say? My daughter was a drug addict. If, of course, you may have to admit it, but why does he have to say it on TV? Like this is a big deal. My daughter was a drug addict. I have some problems with my own children. I don't want to go into it. That's their own privacy. But I'm certainly not bragging about things like that. So thank you.